Hello, it's Willie from the Ozarks, and we're ready for our March the 10th lesson in A Course in Miracles workbook for students from the original edition, lesson 69, My Grievances Hide the Light of the World in Me. My grievances hide the light of the world in me. No one can look upon what your grievances conceal. Because your grievances are hiding the light of the world in you, everyone stands in darkness, and you beside him. But as the veil of your grievances is lifted, and you are released with him, you are released with him. Share your salvation now with him who stood beside you when you were in hell. He is your brother in the light of the world, which saves you both. Today, let us make another real attempt to reach the light in you. Today, let us make another real attempt to reach the light in you, that blazing light. Before we undertake this in our more extended practice period, let us devote several minutes in thinking about what we're trying to do. Okay, so we're going to think about what we're trying to do here. We are literally attempting to get in touch with the salvation of the world. We are trying to see past the veil of darkness that keeps it concealed. We're trying to let the veil be lifted and see the tears of God's Son disappear in the sunlight. Let us begin our longer practice period. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Let's read that again, because he really wants us to enter into our lesson today with this in mind. Today, let us make another real attempt to reach the light in you. Before we undertake this in our more extended practice period, which should last 10 to 15 minutes, let us devote several minutes in thinking about what we're trying to do. We are literally attempting to get in touch with the salvation of the world. So you might just pause as you're beginning of your meditation and say to yourself, I'm really attempting to get in touch with the salvation of the world. We're trying to see past the veil of darkness that keeps it concealed. We're trying to let the veil be lifted and see the tears of God's Son disappear in the sunlight. We're attempting something very holy. Anyway, go into it with the idea of expecting success, recognizing that what you're doing is very holy. You're trying to see past the veil of darkness. You're trying to let the veil be lifted. We're literally attempting to reach the salvation of the world. Let us begin our practice period today with the full realization let us begin our longer practice period today with the full realization of all this and real determination to reach what is dearer to us than all else. Salvation is our only need. There is no other purpose here and no other function to fulfill. Learning salvation is our only goal. Let us end the ancient search today. Let us end the ancient search today by finding the light in us and holding it up for everyone who searches with us to look upon and rejoice. Very quietly now, with your eyes closed, try to let go of all content which generally occupies your consciousness. Think of your mind as a vast circle surrounded by a layer of heavy dark clouds. You can see only the clouds because you seem to be standing outside the circle and quite apart from it. Is he trying to tell us that we're out of our minds? Because he's saying, think of your mind as a vast circle that really contains everything. But you're outside the circle, and between you and the circle, what's he getting ready to tell us? That there's a bunch of clouds that we need to go through to get to our minds. Very quietly now, with your eyes closed, try to let go all the content which generally occupies your consciousness. Think of your mind as a vast circle surrounded by a layer of heavy clouds. You can see only the clouds because you seem to be standing outside the circle and quite apart from it. From where you stand, you can see no reason to believe there is a brilliant light hidden by the clouds. The clouds seem to be the only reality. They seem to be all there is to see. Therefore, you do not attempt to go through them and past them, which is the only way in which you would be really convinced of their lack of substance. We will make this attempt today to get beyond the clouds, to the blazing light, the brilliance of the sun, our mind that we share with God. After you have thought about the importance of what you're trying to do for yourself and the world, try to settle down in perfect stillness, remembering only how much you want to reach the light in you today, now. Determine to go past the clouds. Reach out and touch them in your mind. Brush them aside with your hand. Feel them resting on your cheeks and forehead and eyelids as you go through them. Go on. Clouds cannot stop you. If you're doing the exercises properly, you will begin to feel a sense of being lifted up and carried ahead. Your little effort and small determination call on the power of the universe to help you, and God Himself will raise you from darkness into light. You are in accord with His will. You cannot fail because your will is His. Have confidence in your Father today and be certain that He has heard you and has answered you. You may not recognize His answer yet, but you can be in. You may not recognize His answer yet, but you can indeed be sure that it is given you, and you will yet receive it. Try as you attempt to go through the clouds to the light, to hold this confidence in your mind. Try to remember that you are at last joining your will to God's. Try to keep the thought clearly in mind that what you undertake with God must succeed. Then let the power of God work in you and through you, that His will and yours may be done. Wow. Let's read that one again. Have confidence in your Father today and be certain that He has heard you and has answered you. You may not recognize His answer yet, but you can indeed be sure that it is given you, and you will yet receive it. Try as you attempt to go through the clouds to the light to hold this confidence in your mind. I was going to say hold His confidence in your mind. Same thing, but hold this confidence in your mind. Try to remember that you are at last joining your will to God's. Try to keep the thought clearly in mind that what you undertake with God must succeed. Then let the power of God work in you and through you, that His will and yours may be done. You want to reach that circle of your mind that you share with God, where it's the bright light through the clouds. In the shorter practice periods, which you will want to do as often as possible in view of the importance of today's idea to you and your happiness, remind yourself that your grievances are hiding the light of the world from your awareness. You want to do as often as possible. Why? Because of the importance of today's idea to you and your happiness. Remind yourself that your grievances are hiding the light of the world from your awareness. Remind yourself also that you are not searching for it alone, and that you do know where to look for it. Say then, my grievances hide the light of the world in me. I cannot see what I have hidden, yet I want to let it be revealed to me for my salvation and the salvation of the world. Also be sure to tell yourself, if I hold this grievance, the light of the world will be hidden from me. If you are tempted to hold anything against anyone today. So let's don't hold any grievances. All right? And my grievances hide the light of the world in me. I cannot see what I have hidden, yet I want to let it be revealed to me for my salvation and the salvation of the world. And then the little quick response, you probably want to put this on your card. I wrote that, what we just read, on my card. And also you might write for a quick restorative if you're tempted to hold a grievance, or if you find yourself holding a grievance. Let it go with this. If I hold this grievance, the light of the world will be hidden from me. Let's not let the light of the world be hidden from us. Okay, let's go take a look in our text reading, chapter 14, Bringing Illusions to Truth. And let's start with paragraph 52. And while you're turning there, I want to show you, I showed these yesterday, these little bulbs, the onion bulbs, onion sets they call these, by the way. And let me just tell you a little bit you want to plant onions in full sun. I have grown them in partial shade, but they tend to do better in full sun. And it says here that if you want these to be for green onions, you plant them differently than if you want them to be the large dry onions. Okay, so the green onions, plant sets with roots down in a row with sets as close as possible to each other and 2 to 3 inches deep. Deep planting produces more white edible stems. This is if you want the green onion. The deeper you plant them, you'll have more white edible stem. The closer you put them to the top, the less white part and the more green is how at least that's how I'm understanding it. Deep planting produces more white edible stems. Delicious high-quality onions will be ready for harvesting within 3 to 4 weeks. So you can get your tops. What I usually do is plant them like that, and then I end up just taking out and leave some for the dry onions and get me some green onions up early in the year. But the way they're saying here, another thing, the large dry onions, it says plant in a row 3 inches apart and only deep enough so top is barely covered or just visible. So the top, obviously, there's the root down here at this end, and there's the top that'll shoot the green onion out. And he's saying if you want this to be for a large dry onion, the big onion, regular onion, then plant that real close to the surface. If you want it to have a longer white part in the green onion stem, plant this a little deeper, is all it's saying. I generally just plant them a couple inches deep, take off some of them. I plant them pretty close together, like real close together. And then I end up just harvesting a bunch of green onions and then leaving the rest of them to mature into the large storing onions. Anyway, here's saying for large dry onions, plant in rows 3 inches apart and only deep enough so top is barely covered and just visible. Late in summer, when leaves have withered, dig up the onions and allow to dry in the open air for a few days. Preserve the onions indoors in a cool, dry place. All right? So there's your little bit about some onions. I really encourage you to grow some onions. Okay, paragraph 52. And we'll read this whole section, finish this rest of this section today. And this section is section 6, the shift of miracles. Paragraph 52. The only judgment involved at all in the Holy Spirit's one division into 2 categories, one of love and the other the call for love. Now, by now, you guys have got real clear in your mind that there's only 2 emotions, love and fear. But what I loved the way the Holy Spirit sees it, he doesn't even see fear at all. He sees a call for love in fear. All right? And that's what we want to learn to increasingly do. You cannot safely make this division, for you are much too confused either to recognize love or to believe that everything else is nothing but a need for love. So that's what I was trying to tell you the other day, that you don't want to necessarily, you want to love, and that should be your that's who you are. That's what you're going to do anyway. But rather than following what is loving, follow your peace of mind, because that will show you what is loving from the bigger perspective that the Holy Spirit sees rather than your small perspective. That's what I'm trying to explain that a few days ago. You are too bound to form and not to content. What you consider content is not content at all. It is merely form and nothing else. For you do not respond to what a brother really offers you, but only to the particular perception of his offering by which the ego judges it. 53. The ego is incapable of understanding content and is totally unconcerned with it. To the ego, if the form is acceptable, the content must be. Otherwise, it will attack the form. You who believe you understand something of the dynamics of the mind, let me assure you that you know nothing of it at all. Wow. That's quite a statement. You who believe you understand something of the dynamics of the mind, let me assure you that you know nothing of it at all. For of yourselves you could not know of it. The study of the ego is not the study of the mind. In fact, the ego enjoys the study of itself and thoroughly approves the undertaking of students who would analyze it, approving its importance. Yet they but study form with meaningless content. For their teacher is senseless, though careful to conceal this fact behind a lot of words which sound impressive, but which lack any consistent sense when they are put together. Paragraph 54. This is characteristic of the ego's judgments. Separately, they seem to hold, but put them together, and the system of thought which arises from joining them is incoherent and utterly chaotic. For form is not enough for meaning, and the underlying lack of content makes a cohesive system impossible. Separation, therefore, remains the ego's chosen condition, for no one alone can judge the ego truly. Yet when two or more join together in searching for truth, the ego can no longer defend its lack of content. The fact of union tells them it is not true. 55. It is impossible to remember God in secret and alone. It is impossible to remember God in secret and alone. For remembering Him means you are not alone and willing to remember it. Take no thought for yourself, for no thought you hold is for yourself. If you would remember your Father, let the Holy Spirit order your thoughts and give only the answer with which He answers you. Everyone seeks for love as you do, and knows it not unless he joins with you in seeking it. If you undertake the search together, you bring with you a light so powerful that what you see is given meaning. The lonely journey fails because it has excluded what it would find. So if you try to make your way to God alone, you fail, because God is in your brothers and sisters. And we've got to see that the lonely journey fails because it excluded what it would find. You're going to find God's love in your brothers and sisters and in your love for them. Remember, my grievances hide what? The light of the world in me. They shut you down so you can't see. So we want to do the opposite of grievances. We want appreciation for everyone and actually be sincere. 56. As God communicates to the Holy Spirit in you, so does the Holy Spirit translate His communication through you so you can understand them. God has no secret communications, for everything of Him is perfectly open and freely accessible to all, being for all. Nothing lives in secret, and what you would hide from the Holy Spirit is nothing. Every interpretation you would lay upon a brother is senseless. Every interpretation you would lay upon a brother is senseless. Let the Holy Spirit show him to you and teach you both His love and need for love. Neither His mind nor yours holds more than these two orders of thought. The miracle is the recognition that this is true. Where there is love, your brother must give it to you because of what it is. But where there is need for love, you must give it because of what you are. Long ago, there's the two orders of thought. What's he called? The two orders of thought. The either to love or the appeal for love. But where there is need for love, you must give it because of what you are. Long ago, we said this course will teach you what you are, restoring to you your identity. We've already learned that this identity is shared. The miracle becomes the means of sharing it. By supplying your identity wherever it is not recognized, you will recognize it. And God Himself, who wills to be with His Son forever, will bless each recognition of His Son with all the love He holds for Him. Nor will the power of all His love be absent from any miracle you offer to His Son. How then can there be any order of difficulty among them? Okay, let us go back and take one last look at Lesson 69. And be sure to tell yourself often today, my grievances hide the light of the world in me. I cannot see what I have hidden, yet I want to let it be revealed to me for my salvation and the salvation of the world. And then if you're tempted, you might to hold a grievance, then say, if I hold this grievance, the light of the world will be hidden from me. All right. Thank you all very much for joining me. Have fun with your longer meditation where you actually reconnect with your true mind that we don't really understand real well. But as we enter in through the clouds, past the illusions of separation, we're going to find our true identity and understand God. He's going to give us that knowledge. But our part is to have the willingness to hold no grievances. All right, so until tomorrow, my grievances hide the light of the world in me.